advice and discussion with the MetroPlan Executive Board's attorneys for legal advice on any item listed on the following agenda. Can I get roll call, please?
Yes, for City of Flagstaff, Miranda Sweet, Vice Mayor.
Here.
Flagstaff. Our Vice Chair, Judy Begay, Coconino County Supervisor.
I'm here.
Thank you. Austin Aslin, Flagstaff City Council.
Here.
Tony Williams, Mountain Line Board of Directors.
Present.
Becky Daggett, Mayor of Flagstaff.
Here.
Jamasita Peshlakai, Arizona State Transportation Board Member. Not present. And Geronimo Vasquez, Coconino County Board of Supervisors. Thank you. And MetroPlan staff, Executive Director Kate Morley.
Here.
Planning Manager David Wessel. Not present. Business Manager Tammy Sujo-Vieco. Here. Mendia Gonzalez, Transportation Planner.
Here.
Tim Austin, Transportation Demand Management Planner.
Here.
Thank you. Corey Cooper, Safe Routes to School Coordinator, not present. Melanie Nagel, Montoya Fellow, not present. And Haley Bishop, our Transportation Education AmeriCorps member, is not present this morning. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving down to public comment. At this time, any member of the public may address the board on any subject within their jurisdiction that is not scheduled before the board on that day. Due to open meeting laws, the board cannot discuss or act on items presented during this portion of the agenda. To address the board on an item that is on the agenda, please wait for the chair to call for public comment at the time the item is heard. Do we have anyone here for public comment?
Madam Chair, I don't see any members of the public in the chat. We do have a member of the public joining us as a guest. Are you here to make comments? Thank you. There are no public comments.
Thank you. Item 4, approval of minutes. Do we have any type of presentation on this, or should I just call for the?
We can just call for the motion. Chair, the minutes from the previous meeting were included in the meeting packet.
Great. So I would like to see if there is a motion to approve the executive board regular meeting minutes of September 4th, 2025.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nice. Moving down to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine in nature and have already been budgeted or discussed by the executive board. And at this time, I'm seeing there's no consent.
That's correct.
Okay, action items. Number 1, consideration and possible action regarding the creative local match plan.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. We've been working on the Creative Local Match Plan in partnership with Mountain Line for about a year and a half. It's something you've seen before, presented by our former planner, Sandra Tavel. After she left MetroPlan, we did hire AECom to complete the plan for us. And so now we are bringing it to you for consideration today. It is essentially a white paper at its heart. And the reason I want to say this is we're not recommending that MetroPlan or Mountain Line or the state move forward with any of these things at this time. And so our motion is for you to accept the plan instead of adopt it, to recognize it's really just a white paper, but also to clearly identify that the work is done and being handed over. So the contents of the plan were to look at the legal framework, revenue generating capacity, public acceptance, and implementation steps for the 10 revenue development options in front of you. And it is framed in terms of transit because this was a partnership with Mountain Line to look at ways to raise revenue for transit systems, though frankly, a lot of these solutions could apply to any transportation project. So there's some value there across the board for ways we could be raising revenue. I know this is kind of small, but it's the punchline of the plan. And it looks at those 10 options, the amount of revenue they're going to generate, the feasibility, the resiliency. So is it resilient during economic hardship, or will it really change with that? And then what we thought the public acceptance to the solution would be. And the higher the score, the better the solution, I guess. So if we really look at what rose to the top, it's a transportation utility fee. This is something that goes on a bill, much like a utility fee, that people are paying for transit in that way. A state infrastructure bank. This is really just a loan program, however. So it helps places get started, but it does have to be repaid. So it's limited in its function for operations, but it could help systems with capital projects. And then modifications to the Arizona Smart Fund, which is something, MetroPlan has been very active in identifying the support for, the need for the capitalization of that fund. And the difference here is the Arizona Smart Fund says that you can only be eligible for federal discretionary money, which works for small urban systems like Mountain Line. They are the direct recipient. They apply for and receive discretionary awards straight from FTA. But for rural systems in Arizona or smaller systems, they are often competing for what the feds consider formula funds. So the federal government gives formula funds to the state, and then the state opens up competitive programs for that money. But they are not eligible to use the Arizona Smart Fund for match for those state competitive programs. But that is where a lot of the rural and small systems are applying for their money. So a tweak to the Arizona Smart Fund legislation that says that transit system, that you're eligible for any competitive program, be it through the state or through the federal government, could really increase the ability for transit to access those funds. So a consideration there. So those were the highest ranking items of the alternatives presented. Next steps are really, as I said, to accept the plan as complete. It's a white paper for us to reference as transit systems or Mountain Line or other transportation projects want to move forward. We're distributing this to others as a white paper so that the transit systems themselves can consider how they might want to proceed, or ASTA, the state's transit association, could consider how they want to proceed as a collective. We're presenting it at conferences so that people know that it's out there and what the plan says. I think Mountain Line is actually planning to work with AECOM to present at some national conferences or semi-national conferences. And finally, it was a 5305E transit planning grant, so we will close out that grant activity as well. And with that, I'm happy to talk about any of the other solutions that you saw on the screen further. I just wanted to highlight the top ones for you, being that we're not actually suggesting any of these things move forward at this time. But I'll take questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Sure. I just want to recognize the work that went into this. Obviously, there is a lot of research and planning, and it was not probably easy to, well, I know it wasn't easy to pull this all together into a white paper like this. So I just want to compliment Kate and your team, and those with Mountain Line that helped make this come to fruition. I think it's helpful, and the fact that we're able to demonstrate our willingness to share that out with other transits as a tool to help guide decision making and planning, I think is great. So congratulations.
Anyone else? I'm not seeing anyone online, so can I get a recommendation?
Recommend that we accept the plan as recommended by staff.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries. Thank you, Kate. Item 2, consideration and possible action regarding the legislative agenda.
Thank you, Chair. That's me again. This is one of my favorite things to bring forward every year, so I'm excited to talk with you about our upcoming legislative agenda. The first thing I want to say is I did attach last year's legislative agenda in your packet if you wanted to reference it. And what you'll notice is that we have a much simplified agenda this year. And part of that was we have limited staff resources, limited consultant resources to move things forward. And when we walked into members' offices at the Capitol and we had 6 or 7 asks, it was too many. We needed to be really clear and focused on our top priorities. So this is my attempt at streamlining that into something more simple where we can be very clear with people about what our priorities are. I want to remind the board that we have a state lobbyist, Karen Cruz, that we hire through the local funds that you all pay for membership dues to MetroPlan. We cannot use federal funds for that. We do not have a federal lobbyist, but we do work closely with our partners who all use the same lobbyist. So that makes it very easy for us to have those conversations. We also are members of a number of organizations, the Rural Transportation Advocacy Council, AMPA, which is the Association of MPOs, NARC, which is the National Association of Regional Councils, and they also help us fulfill those national interests. So I'm going to start with our state agenda. And I know that these are very text heavy slides, but we'll just walk through each of them. The first one and the top priority is really to continue to seek the long-term funding solutions for insufficient state transportation revenues. And that those solutions be available for all modes. The idea here is this is related to the gas tax or HERF, the Highway User Revenue Fund. And that has not been raised since I believe it's 1990. I saw a stat from MAG, the Maricopa Association of Governments, the other day that says that if you account for inflation, the HERF is generating less revenue than it did in 2000, but the state's population has grown 45% since then. So we're just not keeping up. And that's for a variety of reasons, fuel efficiency, but also just it hasn't been indexed. So it's not increasing. So really dealing with that root problem of revenue generation is the top priority. This is not a 1-year endeavor. This is a multi-year endeavor to try to find a solution, and then a solution would likely have to be brought to a statewide vote. So a big undertaking here. RTAC would be the entity that we really use to bring this one forward, which is the Rural Transportation Advocacy Council that Member Vasquez and Chair Sweet serve on. So the next one is to educate on the benefits of the SMART Fund, which we just talked about, and the need to recapitalize the SMART Fund. I think our region has received $14 million of a $60 million pot, but there's only about $2 million left in each of the 5 buckets that are available to places. And $2 million on a matching infrastructure grant can go very fast. So we are asking the state to put money back into this program. It's a really wise use of dollars because you're leveraging federal dollars with it. So you're getting a great return on the investment. It also benefits everyone across the state because everyone outside of Maricopa and Pima counties have access to it. It is a rural program. So really a great way to distribute money across the state and leverage resources. And we've been very successful at that. The next one is to advocate and educate on the need for funding for our 2 top priorities in the RTAC bill, which we voted on last month. That was the US 180 project and West Route 66 project. So we're kind of taking a 2-pronged approach here. On West Route 66, we are really emphasizing that through the RTAC bill as a state appropriation, looking for the state to pitch in and fund that. It is the 100th anniversary of Route 66. So there's some excellent timing there for us. The other one, US 180, it's unlikely we would get both these things funded. So we're really focusing on West 66 for that one. There's also a great economic development story to tell related to all the housing that's occurring out that direction. On the US 180 side, we're really pushing that one through the state's capital planning process because ADOT does have some money to move things forward. It is an ADOT road. It's a lower value item, so something we're more likely to get funded. And the district is also behind this. They've ranked this as their number 2 project, which is great. The district is enormous. There are a lot of needs across the district. So we're really appreciative of that. And we're trying to push the 180 through ADOT's process and the West Route 66 through the RTAC bill appropriation process. The next one is to educate on the need for funding ADOT to ensure project delivery and local needs are met. This is just really a statewide issue about funding for staff at the state level and having them have the resources to get projects out the door, grants out the door, to reduce the turnover amongst staff. We don't have a particular ask here, but we just want to be educating the legislature about their need to provide raises and additional funding to support ADOT because that's really important to how we function and how local governments function. And they do have high turnover rates and they are not paid at comparable levels as they would in other industries. Okay, so that's the state. At the federal level, I think I skipped a slide. Here we go. The federal level. The number one thing we're doing here is supporting reauthorization of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act or surface transportation funding levels. The main ask, or I'll get into that on the next slide, so I'll hold off on that. That is our main priority. It is the bread and butter of funding for the region for transportation. The second one is that we really still want to be very active in supporting our partners' grant applications and ensuring that those are moving forward. And there is a very political process associated with those grants. You have to have a good grant to start with, but then you also have to have members of Congress out there advocating that your grant is the one to be selected amongst the top priorities there. All right, on our reauthorization priorities, so that main goal, we met with our partners, and we came up with 4 priorities as a collective. That is our message for reauthorization. It is 1, to maintain the level of funding in the IIJA and keep flexibility for states and local jurisdictions to decide the best way to spend that money. So, and we are seeing some pullback of bike ped transit projects now across the nation. We are really suggesting that they leave those grant opportunities wide open for states and local jurisdictions to decide their highest priorities themselves. We want to also, this next one is to ensure the equitable distribution of funding and update population for formula funds. So what this one is they set many of the funds the federal government gives out for transportation are given out by a population formula. They have not updated that formula since the 2000 census, and Arizona is a high growth state. And so is really missing out on funds by them not using more recent census data. So it's a very simple change to ask them to use current census data when they distribute that money by population instead of old census data. It's obviously very controversial because some states are going to win and some states are going to lose, but it would be very beneficial to Arizona. Our senators are aware of this and they are trying to move it forward. Preserve discretionary grant funding. There's a lot of conversation about just giving out more money by formula so that people don't have to go through the energy of applying for a grant because it is work. The downside to that is the cost of projects is getting so enormous. We need those big pots of money to get things done. We were talking this morning about a couple interchanges that we need. An interchange is easily $50 million. We are not going to get $50 million in formula funds in this region. So we have to have access to those big discretionary grant programs and compete for projects of that magnitude. Even $20 million would be a lot. And as we know, $20 million goes very fast in transportation. The next one is to increase the small transit intensive cities set aside from 3% to 4%. This would have probably over $1 million a year benefit to Mountain Line. I don't have the exact numbers, but they are a high performing transit system. And this is basically a reward program for high performing systems. It's also something that members of Congress really like because they like to give money where it's being spent well. So particularly during this administration, it's a place we could get some traction for them to put more money into that program to be divvied up. I'm not going to go through the secondary goals on there. You can see those. Those are things that other places around the state are really advocating for, and we're happy to support, but they didn't rise to our top priorities in this particular region. So with that, that's the simplified agenda that I am recommending to the board, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments? So I just have a couple. Thank you for the long-term funding solutions. You and I have talked a lot about the need for that. I'm glad that was on the top of the list. And the census information, like, how are we working without current numbers? So thank you for making sure that that was on there.
Just curious, so the decision not to have a federal lobbyist, how much did that save us?
Oh gosh, I don't have numbers off the top of my head, but I can say that we get $30,000 a year out of our membership fees. So that is our local revenue that we can spend on a lobbyist. We spend more than 2/3 of that on our state lobbyist. So there'd be very little left to apply towards a federal lobbyist at this point. My guess is that would be a $50,000 contract if I had to guess off the top of my head. We also do have some other needs for those local funds. So we are not allowed to pay for any food out of our federal funds. That is not a huge part of our budget, but we do occasionally like to bring food into a meeting or have that celebrate an achievement of staff, those kinds of things. We can't do that with our federal money. There are also some small non-reimbursable expenses for travel that we want to make sure we keep our staff members whole when they travel, but we can't reimburse it through our federal grants. So we really just, without raising membership dues, we really wouldn't have the opportunity to even consider a federal lobbyist.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? All right, can I get a recommendation to adopt?
I moved to adopt the proposed legislative agenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you, Kate. Down to item 3, consideration and possible action regarding the West Route 66 operation assessment.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. So today we are seeking the board's adoption of the West Route 66 operational assessment. This assessment was conducted to advise the city on project selection for Proposition 419 funds. The assessment and the recommendations are based on robust data analysis and modeling. Just for some clarity, unlike a corridor master plan, which provides that ideal vision for the corridor and is amended into the city's regional plan, this assessment is to really provide data and information associated with that future growth along the corridor and its potential impacts to travel. So this assessment also provides recommendations for considerations for projects based on those known constraints. And essentially, we're kind of calling this document our first step at reviewing options for West Route 66. So before I recap the assessment, I do want to take a moment to thank our project advisory group for their time. This assessment was a multi-jurisdictional effort and was represented by our partner agencies and various departments. So a huge thank you to that group for nearly 2 years of their time advising on and identifying future improvements to the corridor. Okay, I know you've seen this a lot, so we'll keep it brief. Okay, so we assessed the current recommendations along the corridor to create this full corridor concept. So these recommendations come from previously adopted, publicly approved documents such as Blueprint 2030, the Active Transportation Master Plan, and the Urban Mobility Plan. So combining these project recommendations, we see the total for the improvements come to $32 million. Since one of the purposes of the operational assessment was to evaluate how to leverage that forecasted 10.8 million in 419 tax funds, the full corridor really gave us an understanding of those overall costs. So as we continued the analysis, the project advisory group recognized that there are many uncertainties that would impact a final recommendation from them. So there were really three main areas of uncertainties. First was private development and partnership. You know, there's a lot of unknowns on the timing and scale of potential development along the corridor. Through an assessment of the current proportional shares, which are provided through the developments out there, it was found that, it's found that those funds would be inadequate for supporting a full build out. The second item was state and federal funding. Overall, at this current time, this project is not a strong candidate. This would also require the city to reevaluate their programmed capital improvement program. Thank you. Sorry, I am all over the place today. The third item was operations and constructability. We recognize that there is more analysis needed, specifically around intersection performance. And of course, there are, as you're aware, lots of grading and draining issues out there that could impact, the final recommendation and potential designs. So with those uncertainties, the fiscally constrained recommendations were developed by the project advisory group. These really allow for a more immediate solution that responds to the publicly identified needs and our current regional policies, while also being constrained within those 419 funds that are available. So a little update from last time you saw this. The original cost estimate for this recommendation was 11.7 million, but we wanted to account for about $250,000 in lieu fees and a legislative appropriation of 1.9 million that's specific to the Woody Mountain intersection. So just a brief recap on these recommendations. The PAG is recommending signals at Woody Mountain Road, Railroad Springs, and Thompson. A beacon crossing at Northwestern as per the Active Transportation Master Plan. Roadway widening between Railroad Springs and Thompson. This provides a cohesive and predictable roadway treatment. As you know, there's some pinch points along the way. Well, that's what we'll call them. And an asphalt foots along the corridor that can be transitioned to a separated bike lane at a later time. Of these recommendations, we did ask the PAG if they could pick one of these infrastructure elements to prioritize, what would it be? And unanimously, it was the Foots Trail. They recognize that this is a much needed connection currently, and it will be in the future, and it supports safety by providing that off-street option to those who walk and bike. And if it is built at the edge of the right-of-way, it can be transitioned at a later time to a permanent separated bike lane. All right. So the PAC developed the following next steps for the city to arrive at some certainty on future investments. They're recommending to explore short-term opportunities to include city items with the ADOT's upcoming pavement preservation project. Those conversations have already began. They're recommending the engineering division to discuss with council those short-term recommendations and outline the long-term corridor alternatives for funding strategies. If there is an immediate action desired by the city, it is recommended to pursue an Arizona Smart Funds to conduct that 30% planning and design. And then lastly, the city could consider deferring the full corridor plan and other recommendations to the future Safe Streets Master Plan, which we'll talk about here in just a second. All right, so in addition to the final recommendations, the project advisory group also identified these following considerations to move investments forward to meet timely investments and bridge that gap in the funding. So should the city like to consider these, of course, these are all provided in a little bit more detail in the final document. So we really talked about 4 items as a group. Number 1 being in lieu fees would be part of this long-term or mid-term solution for corridor improvements. The fees would identify a developer's off-site costs and possible on-site edge improvement costs. It would collect those fees in lieu of construction. That way the city can essentially bankroll them for future and more strategic use along the corridor. The second item discussed was a route transfer. Should the city want to take over ownership of the roadway, this would allow the city to improve responsiveness to the public's needs and ensure the corridor meets engineering standards. This removes ADOT policies related to roadway speed limits, crossings, bike and ped facilities that would then be under the control of the city. We also discussed some other financing options here. Community facility districts. This is a special taxing district that provides a dedicated funding source for public infrastructure and services within a specific area. So it covers not only construction costs, but the operations and maintenance as well. This is a popular tactic used by the city of Phoenix, Peoria, Scottsdale, and Pima County. We also discussed transportation reinvestment zones, which is a special taxing district that provides dedicated funding, once again, within that specific area. TRZs serve as a value capture tool to encourage economic growth and development around transportation infrastructure by financing those improvements to the roadways, public transit, and other transportation facilities. However, we did note that there is no existing state framework for this, but wanted to include the information within the final document. Additional planning and policy recommendations came out of this through our data analysis. We reviewed connectivity for the corridor, so we modeled the additional connections. So essentially, new roadways that would run parallel to West Route 66. Through our results, we saw a major reduction in congestion along West Route 66 by providing this alternative access. Alternative access would also create new and comfortable bike and ped access along local roads rather than a fairly busy high-speed road such as West Route 66. We also discussed access management. So this is a systematic tool of the location, spacing, and design of driveways, median openings or left turn lanes, and street connections. So it's an approach to balance all of the roadway users. It improves overall safety for all modes by reducing those conflict points, which lower the risk of crashes and also improves traffic flow as well. And then lastly, speed management. As part of this assessment, we did review the existing speed limits along West Route 66. Once again, this is within the current conditions. At this time, there are no formal recommendations to reduce the speed limit. However, as growth happens along the corridor, it is recommended to review that regularly. All right, I do want to acknowledge the potential role of the Safe Streets Master Plan as it may assist the city in future decision makings for West Route 66. So these are some items that came up in our discussion as well and through the scoping process of the Safe Streets Master Plan. There could be information coming on from this plan regarding the Woody Mountain traffic interchange. It could help us to identify connectivity issues and propose or adopt solutions within the corridor and those surrounding networks. So getting back to one of those items that the PAG discussed, provide additional guidance to Mountain Line on future transit services. Identify any needed improvements at the intersections of West Route 66 and Milton. That's really the crux of this of the corridor in terms of congestion. And potential updates to the transportation impact analysis for developers and how that development process or the fees may change over time. All right, so we are seeking the board to adopt the West Route 66 operational assessment as presented. If adopted, this final assessment will be submitted to the city for discussions between staff and city council. So with that, I will be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions, comments? I have a question. I meet with staff regarding MetroPlan. I'm just wondering if you can touch a little bit on where their participation has been throughout this, and are there concerns being discussed from the staff, the flex staff?
Sure. So through the project advisory group, we had several folks from the city, including engineering, community development. So it was really good to have those folks all in the room together, bringing that expertise in. There was certainly some conversations that came up between them, but ultimately at the end, everybody came to consensus in terms of elevating conversations to management. I know some of the folks within the project advisory group did go to their manager to get additional, whether it's information or guidance on how to move forward. So aware of those conversations happening. Additionally, we present this information to our TAC as well, which has several representatives from the city. So it gave them an opportunity to discuss it as well.
Okay. Thank you. I'm very excited that we have this assessment, and this corridor is so important, I believe, to the future of our city. So I'm thankful that we have a proactive approach, and I'm excited to get some of these projects underway.
Yeah, just, it looks good. I wish we had the magic wand and had the money for the full project. But the revised, fiscally conservative project, will be enough. I think as our community grows and we see what's happening, that'll at least get us through that next phase where we will probably need to upgrade more or invest more into it, but at least that gets us going. And so I agree. I'm excited to see how that comes along. And I was thinking, as the presentation is like, okay, this is something we'll see in about 3 to 5 years. It looks great, but to actually see it come to fruition, it's going to be a couple years. But it's a good plan.
Any
I'll
other-
just add that I'm fully in support. This is Austin Aslan, Flagstaff City Council. Fully support this plan. Really invested and concerned about that corridor. Councilmember or Vice Mayor Sweet, you said we're being proactive here. I appreciate the sentiment. I'm not sure, I feel like we could be further along on this already with a bit better hindsight, but there's no time like the present to really hit the turbo on this and get going. Obviously, there's some concerns around that intersection. It's a very wide road over there, and there's just so many things that could be done. And it's definitely needed. I will also mention that very nearby is that overpass over I-40 that's insufficient for pedestrians. And just want to keep bringing that up. But fully supportive of this, and let's go. That's all.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I'm not seeing any. Can I get a motion to adopt?
So move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Okay, item 4, consideration and possible action regarding the Transportation Improvement Program adoption schedule.
Thank you again. So it is that time to update our transportation improvement program for fiscal year 27 through 31. The Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, is a legally required multi-year plan that lists our upcoming transportation projects that are receiving federal funding or require a federal action. So demonstrated here is our proposed schedule for updating the TIP. By adopting this schedule, this will streamline the board's actions on the development of the TIP while also creating a clear timeline that we can present to the public. And that's that. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions, comments? I am not seeing any. Can I get a recommendation to adopt?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that carries. Thank you. Item 5, consideration and possible action regarding the Transportation Improvement Program formal amendment to Transportation Alternatives grants for Mount Eldon Lookout Road to US 89, Fort Valley Road Mobility Enhancement Scoping, and funding for the Mountain Line 5307 program.
Thank you again. All right, so we are requesting the board approve a formal amendment to our TIP to include all those projects listed. I do want to congratulate both the city and the Coconino National Forest for receiving transportation alternative grants. Hence why we need to include these into our TIP. Just a quick recap, as you already mentioned, one of these projects is for the Mount Eldon Lookout Road to US 89, and then Fort Valley Road mobility enhancements. In addition to these two new projects, we also have an update for Mountain Line's 5703 program. This one's a pretty simple update, just keeping or maintaining their authorization letter and any of the documentation that's needed to provide them with their funding. So we are seeking a recommendation today to adopt these new projects into the TIP.
Excuse me. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. So when you're talking about Eldon Lookout Road to 89, are you talking about going between Eldon and the peaks and grading that road, or making that road gravel, or what's?
Do you happen to know what they're doing about there?
If any of you have been on the new trail behind Buffalo Park that takes you down, it will be the same cross section as that. So they're gonna take it, they've done a NEPA on it already. The Forest Service has as part of their Mount Eldon Trails plan. They call it the metal. I don't know exactly what all the acronyms of that stand for, but it'll look just like that trail out the back of Woody Mountain Road. So it's kind of a narrower version of a foots trail, of what you would commonly think of a foots trail. So the idea is we can help bring commuters in from the Donny Park, the greater Donny Park area, and then also it connects to Schultz Pass Road, and then ties into that new foots trail coming out the back of Buffalo Park, as well as some other places. I do have a map I'd be happy to share. This is their design. This is them moving forward with their design piece. I will say we're all talking in earnest about the construction grant, because the Forest Service money is federal. It is not eligible to be matched for the construction grant. We will need about $100,000 of match for construction. We're just trying to figure out how to piece that together. This is one of those programs that while it's competitive through the state. So we can't use the Arizona Smart Fund as our solution for that. So we're working on that over the next couple of months. We think the grant will open up again in March where they could go ahead and even though they're not through design, they could go ahead and put in for a construction grant at that time, but we would have to have match identified.
I never thought of 89 through Schultz Pass to be an actual transportation corridor for, commuters that live on that side but work maybe over here.
Yeah, but people by the mall, from Cheshire to the mall, for example, or that area, you could take that as an alternative route across town for commuting.
Interesting.
Pretty cool.
I'd definitely like to see it.
Thank you, Kate, for the details.
Does that not
Will not be for cars. It does not.
Any other questions or comments? I'm not seeing any. So we're looking for a recommendation to amend. Do I have someone that would like to put that forward?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? That recommendation carries.
Thank you again.
Item D, the discussion items, there are none today. So we're down to item E, closing business. Do we have any items from the board? Board members may make general announcements, raise items of concern, or report on current topics of interest to the board. Items are not on the agenda, so discussion is limited and action is not allowed. Not seeing any. Our next scheduled executive board meeting is November 6th, 2025. There is an addition. We have an ADOT listening tour luncheon, 12 to 1 o'clock. And then our executive board meeting will be from 1 to 3, and that is here at the DCC. I hope that people can attend in person. There's food.
There will be a full ADOT. Excuse me.
Madam Chair, this is Austin. November 6th is the date of the Discover Flagstaff luncheon. And I just happen to know that off the top of my head because I won't be in attendance. You can put that down now. I'm getting some major surgery that day.
I'm
Just
unable to
information.
attend this as well.
I'm sorry, what was that, Mayor?
That I'm unable to attend this as well.
Okay, so I'm looking at my calendar and I don't have that, the Discover Flagstaff on there. Can
Is
someone
that a
ver-
win?
I
It's a
have it on
Wednesday, right?
November. Austin, I have it on November 5th. Is the Discover Annual Marketing Meeting Luncheon, which is not the date of the meeting that I'm talking about.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up, though.
Yeah,
Mayor,
I'm sure I'm confused on that. So my apologies.
I'm just double checking on my calendar. Mayor, does
No,
that
you're right.
change?
The 5th is Wednesday. So
Thank you. Anyone else online that knows if they will or will not be able to attend on November 6th? It might be good for us to have an idea of who can make that.
actually, I'll update that. I will probably be able to attend at least online, if that's essential for a quorum. So my surgery is the day before.
Thank you. Mayor, does November 6th still does not work for you?
Correct. It does not work.
Okay, thank you for verifying. Member Begay?
I will be able to attend.
Thank you. Those in the room, do you know offhand?
I'll be able to attend.
Okay, I'll be there.
Yeah, I'm scheduled.
Okay, okay, good. So it looks like we'll have more. Thank you. I just wanted to confirm.
I apologize for that confusion.
Okay, thank you. All right, so with that, I am going to adjourn this meeting. I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Thank you all. It's like, it's covered by, oh my God.
That's the day.